Welcome to Fulfilling This Belly Sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
God Morgan, and happy Money's Day to you. Today we start off a brand new week with a collection of experiences like you've never had before. So let's get started. Before we do, I want to talk to all of you who have liked, followed, subscribed us on any of the multitude of platforms that we're available on this morning. Our chat is Facebook and on YouTube. TikTok is not ready yet, but that's okay. For those of you who want to follow us, you can find us on any one of these platforms. By all means, please check us out and like, follow, subscribe. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to my friends and family at newrealitytv. Newrealitytv.com is a wonderful new collection, a streaming channel that's dedicated to presenting ideas and perspectives that can hopefully help you obtain or maintain a better mental space through our spiritual understandings. If you do have a few coins laying around the house that you want to put to good use, by all means, check out our tip jar. You can find that at pay.akoutlaw.com. Those of you who want to learn more about me, my teachings, my message, and certainly about the shows and a multitude of ways, not to mention getting a hold of me directly, you can check out my website, norsewhispers.com. There you can also find our /coaching, which is a life coaching service that I offer, that we can open a dialogue and actually communicate about maybe those things that are challenging you and holding you back from exploring all of who you could be and certainly all of the happiness that you deserve. But let's get started about Mani. Mani, of course, to the Norse, he is the moon. And he represents a ton of things, but most importantly, he represents balance. Balance to his sister Sol, Sol being, of course, the sun. They present a balance of temperature here on Midgard. He provides the coolness of the evening. She provides the illumination of the day. He provides the darkness of questioning, of driving those questions that will help us to grow, become who we will be. This week, we start off the week after celebrating. Many of you in the United States have probably celebrated the Independence Day, 4th of July. And one of the things that we read about in the news this week, of course, is this idea that the floods in Texas, and we pray for all the families affected by the loss of friends and family, and certainly belongings and homes. So you are all in my prayers every moment to, oh my gods, that you may find peace, and you may find comfort, and hopefully return to a place of joy at some point. I know it's going to be, it seems to be a longer road, as quite a bit to be fearful of, quite a bit to be sorry about, and having some of that negative energies, certainly that this kind of event can cause. We have to eventually wrap our mind around that, but we say, well, how do you do that? Well, my friends, it's a matter of mental strength. It's a matter of mental discipline, that we begin to recognize those external influences. Yes, the situation is grim. It may seem hopeless. You may seem that you are overwhelmed by this negative energy. But there is always, even though we may not want to admit it, there is always a brighter side to it. Now, everyone has their own reasons. I'm not here to tell you what your reasons are, and what the reason will be that you find your silver lining in what may seem to be an overall dark situation. It may be that you still have friends and family. You still have, you're alive. So we all have to find whatever that is, that peace that provides a silver lining for us individually. No one's silver lining is going to be for someone else. They may see similar, they may be alike, but they may not either. So all of them are very unique as we are. Mani brings us questions, and that's what Mani does. Is he, as this darkness, this dark energy kind of enters into our lives, it is there to kind of drive us to want to know more. We talk about illumination during Soul's rise and set. And as we come into Mani, we're now going to question that intellect, that illumination that we've gained from Soul. We're going to look at it and go, okay, well, how does that relate to this? And again, each of our journeys, many people have come to me and they've said, I don't understand this. Why can't we all be, follow this one belief process? Well, you can, kinda, but it's unique. Remember, you are so unique. From the time, before you were even conceived in a biological form, your spiritual entity was conceived of a collection of energies in the universe that came together in just the right way to form a consciousness. Okay? And that energy came from a multitude of places, whether it be the deities that provided you with some energy, whether it been the ancestors. All of these people, all of these entities provided you with a particle or two of energy. All of that energy then came together to form your consciousness. In much the same way, matter of fact, identically the same way, your ancestors came together through your parents to provide you with a DNA structure unlike anyone else in history or will ever be. Similar, maybe, to your offspring, to your descendants. Similar, but not the same. You are unique. And that comes together in such a way, in a biological way, these structural pieces, these particles of structure come together in such a way that they form you very uniquely. You are so unique. And then, after that moment in time where these two DNA documents, for lack of a better word, come together and they form you, you begin to manipulate it. Your mind, your body is creating biochemistry. Right? So every emotion that you have creates within you a small, very small manipulation of the chemical composition of your body, of who you are, right? And that chemical composition is unique because it's formed using the DNA that you were given and that you will begin to modify as time goes on. Granted, the manipulation of your DNA is so minute, that you can't really measure it with a measuring stick. You can't say, oh, look, it's not like the wall in your house where, you mark off how tall the kids are getting, right? That's not how this works. It's just a very small manipulation. But remember, as we pass energy through this, and every little bit we manipulate it, a very micro movement alters the trajectory or our perceived change very differently, right? So it may be micro in the DNA, but by the time it's displayed into the mind, it may be pretty different, right? So all of these makes you a very unique individual. Very unique all along your path. And we can try to be like others. Maybe, we want to be like our dads, or we want to be like our moms, or our uncles, or grandfathers, or whomever. And that's great. That's a matter of role modeling. But your DNA and the environmental changes that are affecting you every minute of every day are handled differently in your mind than they will be in, say, they are handled differently. Why? Because you're different people. You have a different chemical composition. You have a different biological composition. You're just different people. And maybe your recognition of these energies in the universe that are affecting you will be different. And different is okay. Different is wonderful, right? It gives us a different perspective. That's really what life is about. So we're looking at the effect of Mani. Mani being the question that drives us, the question that moves us from the illumination of before to the illumination of the future. Remember, when we talk about wisdom, we're talking about knowledge and experiences, okay? And we're talking about connecting them, using the experiences to connect related knowledge stacks, if you will. So that now we're getting a bigger and bigger picture of our existence, of this life that we're going to lead, right? So it's a very powerful day, because we're really beginning to drive questions. We're beginning to gain those questions. Why? Why has this worked the way it is? What effect will this have on my life? What effect will this have on my descendants? All of these questions are being driven into our thought process now as we've gained this illumination, whatever the illumination was. Now, each and every day, I pray to the ancestors, and I thank them, and thank them for the illumination at which they are going to provide me through soul every day. Why? Because it's very critical that they understand how grateful I am that they're willing to do this. But most importantly, I recognize that energy that's going to come into me every minute of every day. This influential energy has the potential of just totally derailing my plans or my ideas of what normalcy is. Going back now momentarily to thinking about these floods and these natural disasters that are happening in Texas now. Maybe it is this experience that will bring a family together. Maybe it's this that will bring a community together. Many different things can be driven from what we would perceive as a disaster. Remember, this is only our perspective. As we see other perspectives, we get a bigger and bigger picture. These experiences are going to begin to connect us and our experiences, helping us to bridge these gaps between our knowledge pieces. So a super critical understanding of these, what may seem to be an overwhelmingly negative experience in this lifetime, may in fact not be as negative as we think. Now, again, we pray for the families who have lost and who are undergoing these huge changes in their lives, and we pray that they find comfort and they find peace, they find joy in whatever method that means, whatever method works for them, knowing that they are unique and they are special individuals. So we pray for you, Texas, and we pray for those in Fairbanks and in the interior here in Alaska for the forest fires that are raging. So, with all that aside, how can we take the knowledge of Mani and what Mani brings, even if we're not, we don't subscribe to the Norse legends and lore? Well, let's take a real quick commercial break, and when we come back, I want to tell you how you can implement these changes in your life every minute of every day. We'll be right back.
The air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for taking that break with us again. My wonderful friends and family at New Reality TV offer a plethora of perspectives that can hopefully help you. Today we're talking about mental control, and we're talking about Mani, the Norse god of the moon. He is so important in our lives, but let's talk about how we begin to take back the steering wheel of our lives. How do we identify these pieces that are driving and attempting to change us now? These influential energies are all around us. They're in experiences, events. There are people who are trained in this, marketers and advertisers. They are trying to convince us to change directions, to alter our trajectory in some way. Even you could construe this information as being influential energy. Why? Because the message which I'm providing is to kind of look at what is changing your trajectory one way or another, whether it's positively, as in, I really want to try to investigate this some more, or whether it's negative. Man, this guy he's off the rocker. Whatever message seems to fit you, that's fine. That's the influence of lifetime. Okay? So, how do we begin to change our path? Well, for those of you who are not familiar with this idea, to manage something, you have to see it. You have to control, you have to understand it. You have to recognize its impact in your life. So, the best way to do that, obviously, is meditation. But think about it from a very skeptical kind of way. In that, suppose we receive an influence that says, if we were to do this, that would make our lives better. Okay. suppose we looked at it and said, well, what if it doesn't? What change will I make? How will it affect not only me, but maybe others around me? Maybe my family, maybe my friends. How will it affect all that? But when we begin to look at energies coming in, all these influences always around, it's the gift of modern man, is that we have all these influences, all this influential energy, abundant. How do we decide what's what? Well, the first thing is we have to know who we are. This is the key. This is the cornerstone of your mental health. And I know people say, well, spirituality and mental health, they're connected. They're directly connected. There's no two ways about it. All right. Whether we choose to acknowledge our spiritual connection or not, absolutely irrelevant to this picture. What's relevant here is that they are intrinsically linked. You can't have one without the other. All right. So our spiritual beliefs and our spiritual understandings simply come down to what is the energy at which is moving into our lives and trying to alter us and change us. What are we holding? What are our beliefs? What are our values? So this is really where some of my understandings given to me by the ancestors have really come into play. And the way I begin to address these is, well, meditation. Meditation allows me to kind of block out all my physical sensory input. So I'm no longer taking in the advertisements that are floating through the air, all that stuff, right? Maybe even negativity that's surrounding me for some reason. Maybe there's a group of people close by to me who are producing a lot of negative energy, and it will have its effect on me. But in this case, in meditation, I'm going to block all that out. So all I'm focusing now is on the energy inside of me. Now, the first thing I want to do, obviously, during meditation, is discover who I am. What are my values? What do I hold sincere? And this is where I begin to ask myself questions. What do I believe? Why do I believe that? What was the authority at which I assigned to get me that value, right? Because remember, as my ancestors described in the well of the self, all these other people in our lives, particularly early in our lives, are going to be throwing value rocks into our well. And so we're going to adopt some values from our parents, from other authority figures in our lives, particularly early in our lives. And these values are then going to be used to evaluate everything in our lives. Every experience passes through these values. So, what do you find important? What means something to you? What's more important when it comes to harmony with others, or love, or the expression of love, and how do we feel about all these different things? Now, obviously, there are certain things that you can't even think about right now that are going to attempt to influence us, and we have to look at then that energy, whatever that is, and we're going to have to push that through and decide how we feel about it. Now, my ancestors have described the process of putting energy from our mind all the way down to our heart, all the way through our heart, okay? Through our heart, down to these values. Now, at the bottom of the well of the self, these rocks that I mentioned, these are our values. They are our core values. They are what make us think and feel what we do, okay? Super important. Super critical, because a lot of times we may take the attitude of, well, what the internet refers to as meh, whatever, right? When we do that, we're passing the energy that's coming down into the well of self, instead of permeating all the way down to our values, to who we are, to what we are, it's going to reflect off the surface and then exit the well. Okay? Go out the side. When it does that, it creates, I call it silt in the sheath of truth. Now, this is another term that my ancestors have used that describes that moment in time where we're in this like tube and the energy's going to come in, and what's going to happen, or the biochemistry, I should say, is going to come in to this sheath of truth, and it's going to expand back into energy. So it's coming in, it's going to expand. Now, the expansion can only go so far. We have two spaces that we need to concern ourselves with within this sheath. The silt I just mentioned, which is where we're just meh, whatever, we don't care. That's going to create silt along the bottom. The other more important space is up at the top, and that's the head space of cognition, or the cognitive thought space. This allows us, as this energy is expanding, all right, it gives us the space to kind of chunk it down. Whoa. Let's chunk this down, break it down so that it's more manageable. It fits into the sheath of truth. So it kind of is able to be managed. And that way we don't overexpand. Now, we know when this, when the sheath overflows, right? Because there's too much energy to fit inside the sheath, and it spills over. This causes physiological problems. Sweaty palms, shaky, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, overall, right? Because the rest of the brain doesn't know how to deal with this energy, right? The sheath of truth can confine it and say, all right, this is what we're going to do with it, and this is what it means, and this is how we're going to organize it. As long as we have that cognitive space. When we don't have that cognitive space, the mind doesn't know what to do with it. And this is where we get into situations where we have this blind emotional state. We just don't know what to do, right? We may be overwhelmed. We may be overly sad or depressed or anxious or angry or just a ton of things. Why? Because we've got too much energy fitting in this sheath. This scenario we find quite frequently when people are struggling with their mental health, because they don't have that cognitive space. They may have built up too much silt. There may be a very traumatic event. I think of the floods here in Texas going on right now. I'm sure those folks are just, they're peaking, right? They've got just so much energy within that sheath. Why? Because it's very a traumatic situation. It's very psychologically traumatic. So it's really expanding to a place where we don't have any cognitive space left. We just don't. There's just no more room. So we find that they have overfill, and this is where we get into anxiety attacks, almost to the point where we can really paralyze ourselves. We can paralyze our thought process. We can paralyze our movement forward because of this energy. So really understanding what our values are and what our capabilities are. Sometimes setting controls in place in our physical world will help us to kind of tone things back down. These are affirmations, and they happen quite frequently. We set ourselves up for success or not success based on what these affirmations are, what we've created in our belief system to kind of lock, control things and keep them manageable. And that's really the key here. All right. So today I want you to spend some time, hopefully meditating, and remember, meditation doesn't have to be this super exercise of weird poses and whatnot. Just a simple intrinsic reflection. Discover what your values are. What are your core values? Ask yourself some tough questions. What do I believe? What do I understand? What are my thoughts about this or that or this other thing? Right? What are they? And how can I get those back? Now, the deeper we look into the self, the better view we have of the rocks, of our values, of what our virtues are. What are those cornerstones that make us who we are and make our decisions for us? Begin to understand, we can begin to manage those rocks, and we can begin to live life in our authentic space. And that's really what we're trying to do. So we're trying to get back to that authentic space, which gives us that comfort, which clears out the sill, which gives us more cognitive space, offers us elasticity in the sheath of truth to handle this explosion of energy, if you will. Gives us a little bit more cognitive space that we can then work our way through these challenges that may occur in our lives. Well, as we move on with today, Mani's Day, I do want to say just one more time, I pray for all of you who are affected by the floods in Texas and certainly by the wildfires here in Alaska. I pray that you are safe. I pray that your loved ones are safe. I pray that you're able to find peace and love again. I pray that this overwhelming negative energies that's passing right now will be learned from and grown from and embraced and just makes you a more powerful, better person. All right? I pray for you. In the meantime, my friends, have a wonderful Mani's Day, and we will see you again tomorrow where we will embrace the courage of tear. Love and light, my friends.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.